Hello and welcome into the Section 109 podcast, here from Studio Breezy. If you came to this from the thing you saw in Finley Stadium, God help you. I'm not sure you made a good decision, but we're happy you're here. If you are, please do the thing that makes podcasts happier, on YouTube, any of the other places that you're watching or listening. We would love a like, comment, subscribe, all those things. And Matthew and Jim, let's get into our Atlanta United review, news, mailbag, and all the other things. Matthew, why don't you drive?
Okay, so we played our first match of the season over the weekend. And we won.
Yes.
Hooray.
Jim, what would you have actually given our chances going into that game of winning?
Of winning? Oh, 10%, 10 or 15%.
Yeah, like I think if we had lost, and I was glad to win, and that's quite the streak. Like I think I said this to Matt, but like it was 6-0 or 4-0, 6-0 were the first two times we played.
And don't forget the closed door preseason 2021.
Yeah.
3-1.
That was never public, but it was 3-1.
Yeah.
And then 3-3,
3-3.
and now 2-1.
Yeah.
But I would have guessed we were just going to lose this game handily and just like be glad that we got some minutes in our
I thought it was
legs.
going to be like 2-0, 3-0. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be a 5-6 because how long have they been in camp? Like a week and a half.
About the same time we have.
And they've
That's
got
true.
a new manager. They've got a bunch of and they're going to play. They were going to play young ones at some point, in the second half. They were going to try. I mean, they weren't match fit.
They for
So-
sure were not match fit.
I mean, they
so-
were us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so I did not expect a 4, 5, 6 like when we went down to Kennesaw.
I just wouldn't have been surprised if it was like 3-0
Yeah,
or 4-0.
yeah, 2 or
I mean,
3.
4 would have been a little bit like, man, that's a little bummer. But like, also if it had been 0-0 at halftime or 1-0 at halftime, and then in the second half the trialists kind of like just shit the bed or whatever. Like I wouldn't have been mad because like you're a bunch of trialists, you've not played together. Who cares?
I'll tell you, when it was 0-0 at half, I'm like, you know what? We've accomplished what we probably need to accomplish, and with
Exactly.
I mean, as a club.
That was a win, essentially.
And then when we went one down on a set piece, I'm like, well, I gave 0 fucks about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I was
In the moment, I was actually a little bit not happy, but like, oh, good. Like they'll actually come back next time.
Yeah.
They might never come back.
They seriously, like, y'all enjoy it because I seriously doubt they ever come back.
Yeah. But so I was waiting. I was sitting outside of the studio in my car, trying to listen to the final parts of their post game, like Longhorn's kind of. Is Longhorn? Longshoe. Longhorn?
Something.
Jason
Jason Longshoe, I think.
Jason Longshoe.
Anyway, he's a great dude.
Yeah, we had him on the 423.
I remember I listened to that.
And he was a great guy. And I've gone back and forth with him on Twitter, but who haven't I? So so I was trying to listen to that, and you're right. I don't know that they come back. They talked to a Guzan in the interview, and he mentioned the pitch 3 times, at least 3 times. Like, yeah, he blamed.
Come on.
He blamed the tools. Yes, he did. The artist blaming his tools. Yeah, he said that there were some bad touches and the pitch played I'm like, dude, all right, whatever.
That's coaches speak for we didn't come in really caring.
Yeah,
and he's not a coach, but you know what I mean?
That's like older player coach speak for. We trained all week or the last 2 weeks on grass.
Yeah.
And we touched artificial turf for the very first time.
Like they play on turf. Come on.
That's when they were wetting the field down before. I went with my younger son. He was like, "Oh, they don't do that normally for CFC games." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, they play on. He's like, oh, I don't know. I wonder. They're doing that because of Atlanta." And I'm like, well, they play on turf too.
But they do wet that turf down there, though.
Sure, and you should wet the turf down.
Totally.
But are they coming back? I don't really care. That was it was great. It was fun. It was nice to have a match where I had 0 anxiety because I literally did not care of the outcome.
Yeah.
So when the second goal went in, All I really did was laugh.
I laughed as well.
I just laughed.
I think the exact thing was I like kind of smiled. I kind of looked around, kind of smiled again. And I was just like,
it's just
what
like,
the fuck?
What the hell is happening? I laughed, stood up, and I was like, okay, that clapped. And I sat down. I was like, well, this was fun. This was fun. It got cold, but it was fun.
I was not at the game, unfortunately, and so I checked on my phone after the thing I was at, and I saw 2-1, and I was like, my dad was there, and I was like, Dad, I think CFC won 2-1. He goes, what?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I went in and told Heather that we won. She's like, that's nice. She kept reading her book. I'm like, that was the reaction in my house.
I think Maddie's texted me when she asked how the game was, and I sent that we won. I think her response was impossible.
Turns out it was not. That was wild. What do you do? Is there anything, since I wasn't there to watch it, I have rewatched the first half. I have not watched the second half yet. I say rewatched. I have watched the first half. What are kind of y'all's takeaways, if any, from the first half, from the second half? And what can we or should we take away from this?
I guess I paid more attention to what we were going to be doing in defense. It's just because, and so I thought the back line played pretty well. Did a good job of clearing. It was not a surprise to me. We're going to talk about this later, and I'm sure it wasn't surprising to me to see today that one of the trialists that started is now no longer a trialist. I thought they played well. I was a little nervous about balance. There were several times when we had a whole bunch of guys up high. We had our back four, and then there was a ocean of space in between. So I don't know if if some players playing a little bit out of position, a new system formation. But yeah, there's not a whole. It's clearly we're not playing it out of the back every time.
Right, we're sometimes playing out of the back, sometimes playing long.
Yeah,
which is a giant change.
Well, and I don't know. Again, so there's two things I wasn't sure. And Matt, you could talk at this. Maybe I don't know if you talked to Chris about this or not, but I don't know if that was the competition that we were going longer more, or if that is truly a complete change in kind of an approach. In either way, I think that is. I think that's a positive. If it's a change in approach, I appreciate it. I like playing out of the back. It keeps possession. I like that in certain times, but there are also times when, at least I remember last year, where we had wingers like, dude, they're open, play the pass, and we're kicking it around in the back. Or if it's not a complete change in role, if it's an adaptation to the team we're playing, I like that too. So either way, we can talk about how our wingers dealt with those long diagonal passes and what they did or did not do with them when they got them. But I think for the most part, I thought I was really happy with what I saw in the first half. It was a little disjointed. Possession wasn't great, but I put that up to the opponent.
Totally.
So, and we had what I think we had like one half chance, maybe two. Only really gave up one really scary chance that they really should have scored.
The one off the post?
Yeah. The one like the 36th or something like that.
Yeah. And look, it's a really nice play from a really good player.
Oh, it's a really nice play, and he's in acres of space. I'm like, so where's the six? Where what I need to go back and watch kind of how that evolved, because we sunk really deep, and it was a cutback, and he was in. There wasn't anybody within 5 yards of him. So yeah,
but if that's the only one you give up to an MLS side,
yes,
in a whole half, I felt really good about the defensive performance overall in the first half.
They had one real shot, one real chance. So I don't.
And he missed.
Yeah, he missed.
Matthew, how did you feel about the first half, the second half, whatever you want to talk about, and also how should we be? Because we joked about if we win 5-0 or if we lose 5-0, we shouldn't think about it. And then, buddy, we won 2-1, and I'm overanalyzing the hell out of this thing.
So I don't think you can take anything out of the final score. I don't think you can extrapolate this team's going to be really good. We beat Atlanta United in preseason.
What I heard is a friend of the podcast, Ross, says we are now by transitive properties the Supporter Shield winners.
Yeah, better than the Supporter Shield winners. Yeah, you can't take anything meaningful team wise and say, well, this group's going to be incredible, right? That's just not how this works. If you look at the game on its face, and this is true in both the first and second halves, like Atlanta has very solidly 2/3 possession. Not unsurprising.
I mean, I think if Rod's still coach, we'd have a little bit higher share because we would have tried really, really hard to keep the ball.
Here's the thing.
But I wouldn't expect us to keep.
I thought we tried really hard to keep the ball. Like we didn't really play that long unless a switch was on and we were trying to catch Atlanta out of position, or if they pressed. There were a couple moments where some pressure came in, like kind of single pressure from the striker, and Eldon would try to play out to the other side. But if you think about the goals, just the goals themselves, you've got 2 set pieces where the defending really should be better
For both teams, you mean?
One
for each team.
apiece, and then you've got kind of a freak situation where where Jesus put some really, really good pressure on.
I need you to put some respect on Jesus' name.
On Morales, the center back, and he clears that ball into Jesus' shin or something, and it just happens to fall for him, right? Like that's really good stuff from Jesus to number one. Like it's a great ball from the left back. It's really good pressure from Jesus not to give up on the play, and because there's a 9. A trialist 9 occupying that space, like that helps get the center back Morales a little bit out of position, which then lets him sink later and be desperate, because if he doesn't, Jesus is taking that off the foot and he's in 1-on-1.
And he does take it off the foot.
But the clearance comes off of his shin or whatever, and it just falls perfectly, and he's able to collect it and round the keeper.
Now in live time,
that could easily have been ricocheted into the pavilion.
Yeah. Totally. In live time, how worried did you guys get the longer he dribbled on the line?
I really thought it was getting called back for something, and he was just fucking around.
I did too. I thought he heard a whistle, or he. I mean, I really didn't. I don't know if he was. So I still don't know if he had a mistouch, if he was just fucking around.
I thought he was offside.
He was fucking around. They asked him about it after the game.
Okay.
So if you guys haven't watched it, go to YouTube. I would steal this and play this, but I feel like that's disrespectful to CFC. But if you go check out CFC's YouTube, they have an interview after the game, and he was like, a million things went through my head as I was taking the extra touches. I wanted to like dribble it in, and then I wanted to like back heel it in. He's like, and then I just decided to kick it in after a couple touches.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looked like. But
I just
really,
loved
initially I was looking around like, okay, is there a flag? I mean, is there? Did somebody call a foul? I mean,
right. It looks like one of those where somebody dribbles it right up to the line and then has to dribble it back because they haven't it's coming back for offside. I would have been, I think, if I was in the stadium, like very worried he was going to miss, because it could have been like, those like terrible fail compilations. Like it wasn't, to be clear, it was perfect, but like, holy moly. I also was surprised none of the Atlanta players went after him, at least that I saw, because it was extraordinarily disrespectful in the best possible way.
That really might be Atlanta's biggest problem.
Yeah, that none of them tried to fight Jesus after that? Correct.
Like they've
no
got
heart.
Multiple guys from Eastern Europe. And you're telling me that none of them like are gonna like stand for that? Like,
you know what Anatoly would have done if he'd been on the opposite end?
Like there's your problem. Stop spending $13 million on players who can't play soccer, and instead, spend $5 on a guy who's going to get into a rock fight. Maybe I wouldn't be soft as Charmin.
You're a bad guy. So the first half ends how it ends. From what I saw, like I agree with basically Jim's analysis. Would be basically mine. Matthew, did you take much out of the first half as far as like performances from guys that we know, or I shouldn't say we know, that we expect to be starters?
It's really tough because you've got 2 sets of players who have been in for no more than 2 weeks. who are getting no more than 45 minutes, with the exception of now signed player Ethan Dudley,
which we should talk about next.
Sure. So like the only thing that matters is using that game to raise intensity to build fitness. And that process happens at unequal rates for different players. So like what I saw was Atlanta had a lot more of the ball than us. And in terms of individual players, like they were trying to go out and do some stuff. And, you know, some guys looked a little bit rusty. Some guys looked a little bit step slow. Some guys like it is normal stuff. I don't think there's anything really to take away here.
Who were y'all standout positive performers from the first half? Anybody stand out to you?
I really enjoyed watching. Number one, I really enjoyed watching Darwin. He's a kid.
The kids are all right.
I don't think,
dude.
I don't think he was insanely involved.
He kicked Click or whatever his name is right in the back, and just like gave him a little something. And the announcers, who were unbelievably homerish, which I get, they're the home team, like or the home team, quote unquote, hometown Atlanta, like radio guys. So like I'm not hating, but they were like, and they're how I would like my radio guys to be. But they were like, I like that from the 18-year-old. Show them you're there. And I was like, well, that's an interesting way when the guy just kicked your like almost DP. But yeah, he was kind of invisible in the way that 18-year-olds are invisible, I felt like, for parts of the first half, but also he popped up and like looked good in moments too. So like there's no shade there. Just like 18-year-olds can drift in and out of games, and you expect that. And he kind of did that too. But he had some nice moments.
I also think that it's really tough for, again, 18 years old. It's really tough for a player who's kind of playing the 10, and we can talk about formation here a little bit later. When you just... A lot of what you're doing is defending. A lot of what you're doing is plugging gaps, trying to, maybe you're the 10 that's applying pressure, or is kind of covering pressure, whatever it is. Like he was not, more often than not, he was not the 10 that was tasked with dropping in to help with midfield numbers. That was Callum.
Yep, Callum dropped it deep to pick up the ball all the time.
But I guess I mentioned him first because I like seeing him out there. He was given the starting nod, which was
very cool,
a nice, cool thing. You know, Tate looks like he fits right in, just straight in there.
That was one of my big takeaways. I thought Tate looked really good,
and then
just right back into what, no pun intended, into what he's like was for us for several seasons.
Yeah. And then really, you know, your only starter. Aside, I guess, you know, Eldon's back there, and Eldon's a freak with his feet, man. Like an absolute freak with his feet. Really didn't have a ton to do in that first half. So like you take those two guys out, you know, Eldon's been around, not playing for CFC, but he's been around a little bit. Tate used to play here. And the only truly new player from that first half group was Stevie, Louis Jean. At the 6. And boy, do I think he's athletic. You saw a couple moments where, like, there's one particular recovery clip.
Yes. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And when I watched the game again today, it stood right out again. I was like, holy crap. That's like, I see why.
So something I told Matt before the game, Jim, was that I wanted to see, because if you watch Stevie's highlights, Steve-O's highlights, I'm going to call him Steve-O until I find out I can't. If you watch Steve-O's highlights, he covers ground all over the field. He's constantly just like going from challenge to challenge to challenge and like different sides of the field. And I told Matt before the game, I want to see in this first half from him, how does he match up athletically with like actual MLS guys? Does he look like a step down from them athletically? Does he look like on a similar plane? Because one thing we've really lacked the last few years, basically since Richard Dixon was gone, retired, so the whole last year, but even like Richard Dixon's last year, he wasn't quite as young as he once was. Richard Dixon used to cover so much ground, going like end line to end line, shepherding the game, making tackles, making challenges, and like he gave us so much time and freedom to regroup and to get together and whatever else. And I wanted to see if we got a guy like that. And I'm not saying that Steve-O has to be Richard, because those are giant shoes to fill. So that's not what I'm saying. But I did see in that first half several times that he has a thing that we haven't had since Richard, and maybe even a step bigger than Richard on the athleticism side, where he can. So there was one play where he made a challenge, and then the ball starts recycling back around, and he gets back in time to make a challenge in the middle again on the ball as it's cycling around. Like, he can just cover the ground like a guy that, like, we haven't had a player like that at really any position, I would argue, in a very long time. And I don't know what that's going to mean that we're just exceptional now, right? But I think one of the things that Rod's team lacked last year in particular was a 6 focal point, especially defensively, who could like make a challenge, slow things down, cover a couple guys, switch off, whatever else. And I feel like we didn't have that perfect piece. I don't know if we have it now, but I got to see the athletic piece that I was really hoping that translates from the highlights, and it translated against an MLS guy. That recovery run you're talking about, he basically little brothers an MLS guy. Like, the guy gets 2 steps on him, kicks it long, and Stevie just catches him in one little 3 steps and just kicks the ball out. And it was like, oh shit, you're not supposed to be able to. That guy's supposed to beat you, like, and definitely not be caught in like 3 steps. So it's one glimpse. Who knows what happens? But it made me really excited to see, because I also think we in that zone 14 that they talk about, we gave up a lot of chances in that. I felt like we gave up 1 or 2 really big ones every game throughout the season, and like I want a destroyer in that space. And I don't know, I've seen one half of football from
I wouldn't
Steve-O,
call him a destroyer. I mean, at least based on what I saw.
I don't know if he's a destroyer, but I know that he can actually run from side to side in that zone 14.
He's athletic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the kind of game you get a destroyer to really show up for.
No, not a first friendly. I mean,
really, just
sure.
because like
you don't want to leave one on.
Atlanta's eventually
they would never come back.
Atlanta's eventually going
apotheose on them.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Atlanta's
Matt's
eventually
having shivers right now.
is going to they're going to pass through you eventually. But the way Atlanta passed through always ended up with get the ball wide. There's 6 or 7 of us defending, whether it's in the box or at the top of the box, and just pump across in.
Yeah.
I think the English 7th division would have thought that was too English.
I mean, I'd love to know how many defensive headers we had, because the center backs were just, it seemed like.
But I
really liked how Dudley and especially how Farid handled the balls in. They won everything essentially.
Now I think that's also like a little bit partly by design for that particular game,
and it's early in their preseason
for Atlanta.
Sure.
They don't have. So they probably played 3 nailed on starters in each half, and that's like future nailed on, not whatever they currently have. So. But then, like, a lot of guys that are in that, like, 12 to 25 range. And they've got a couple injuries, too. That
roster spots 1 through 30, 12 through 25.
Yeah.
That's Matt saying. For the listener at home.
So, like, it wasn't nobody, but it's a lot of... And this was really their big problem, I think, in the second half of the year and even in the playoff run. When you don't have talisman, like true talisman, you are asking a bunch of players who are much more suited to a specific role, even if that role is like, a really good 3rd or 4th option. You're asking that player to be the number 1. And like, if that player was that good, like they just wouldn't, they wouldn't be there. Yeah. Like they'd be somewhere else. And so like, what are you going to do? Like, how do you want to break down a pretty well organized team where you have 66, 70% possession? Well, you're going to end up, knocking it. You're not going to knock it down to the wing, and you're going to pump across in, right? Like you're either going to do that or you're going to horseshoe of death. And based on some of the post game comments from Ronnie Dyla, the Atlanta head coach, like he doesn't want a horseshoe of death. No. He wants to get the ball active, to get it moving, to cause a little chaos, and I think their transition from Pineda and then an interim coach to Dyla is going to be obviously at a different level, but a little bit mimicking the Rod kind of era at CFC into Chris's era, where it seems like the possession reins are just being loosened a little bit. Like take a few more chances. You don't have to worry about keeping possession. You can go long if it's on. Much more freedom to mix it up, as opposed to what felt like, at least, very certain kind of patterns in build up.
Jim, did you have guys that stood out to you in a positive way in the first half?
Again, I mean, as sometimes critical as I've been of Zarzar, I thought the two center backs played really well, and like I said, the defensive headers, everything that came in, they're really the only one I can right now come up that they just didn't get was that was in the second half, was the goal, but man, I thought they did really well. The outside backs, we've seen these guys, so I thought they did a really good job. But I'll just put the back four. I thought the back four played really well.
Beautiful. Second half, anything you guys take out of that? Because when I think of the second half, and I need to go back and watch it closely. I saw a bit of it on my phone, and then I've seen the goals, obviously. But it's a bunch of trialists. So how are we supposed to think about that game and in those moments in the second half?
The second half was played a lot harder than the first half. Like, the groups of players that were playing harder than the groups of players in the first half.
Trying to get a roster spot.
Well, I mean, I think this goes for
one guy who played into that second half already got one. I would be interested to see if anybody else got one.
I think this goes for Atlanta as well. You've got a super draft pick at right back who scores the goal.
Yeah.
You've got Gregerson, who's probably a starter. Morales is a homegrown. You've got Bartolo Schlitz, Saba Lobojanice, Mosquera's in there. You've got the new striker Togashi. Will Riley's a super draft pick. There's some. They got a few decent players in that group, and I think, especially because how involved Saba was, how involved Mosquera was trying to be. Schlitz in the midfield. In that second half at least, you walked in against a next pro side 0-0 at halftime. Okay. Let's.
There were probably
second half crew. Let's show them how it's done. Right.
There were probably some things said at halftime,
and especially because you were playing up against a group that had, we had a trialist up top, we had Amzian, and we had Jesus on the wings.
Mm-hmm.
You had a trialist at the 10. You had Robert Screen as one of the 10s. Mm-hmm. Nick Mendoza at the 6.
Robert Screen as one of the 10s.
And you had 4 trialists in the back line.
Yeah.
You're going to go in there and you're going to be able to just do some things that you already should be able to do some things. And then you're just going to be able to do kind of almost whatever you want. I thought it took us 15 minutes to really settle down and figure out, okay, they're going to have the ball.
Yeah.
That's okay. What can we do when they're when it's time to break? And I thought from there, we saw a nice little series of interplay, probably 64 minutes in. Robert Screen, nice ball over the top. Amzian earns a corner, and that really gets it kind of started. Of just a little bit of action, and nothing comes of it for a while. And I don't think there were any real shots either.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought we started to see that group really put a little extra fight in, because that game went to 80 minutes before Atlanta scored.
Yep.
They're starting to really believe a little bit. And
I mean, I know they go 80 minutes before they scored. There wasn't any. I can't right now remember really a decent chance before.
Atlanta had some really good attacking opportunities.
Yeah.
That did not result in shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where have I seen
Michael
that before?
I think Michael had one good diving save. I think they were offside. But I think he had one decent save until the save that I'm sure we'll talk about later.
He had a couple of saves by that point in time because that's the last save of the game.
Right. I know.
But there's like 3 or 4 saves that happened in that like 5-minute period.
I think
Before that, he doesn't do much.
They look, but they were all pretty comfortable. They were all even the dive.
Yeah,
is a pretty
everything
comfortable
is
save.
everything is something I want him to save.
Yeah.
Everything he should save, really.
Jesus says in the post game that Michael scored a goal by saving that last one.
It's as good as a goal.
It is. Well, hi Mix, where you going, buddy?
Yeah, but as far as individual players, like I just don't really think you can take a lot out of 45 minutes.
Well, I liked 21. I don't know who Charles 21 is, but I liked 21.
I bet Toby's at the door.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he did a great job. Like that left back position is really difficult up against a guy like Saba, and but I could say that about I could go down the list of players, in terms of their positional matchups.
Where was 21 playing in the field?
Left back.
And I thought he was central.
No.
Am I thinking of the wrong player then?
27
5'10".
would have been central.
Left-footed?
I have to watch.
Playing,
I have to go back and watch again. I thought it was 21.
Did he play the set pieces?
I don't. Right now, the second half was like vibes. I mean,
It really was. It really was, though.
so I thought 21 played more centrally. Whoever was the central player that played was kind of a short. I say short. I think he was like 5. Looked to be like 5'9", 5'10".
There's a 27 who's probably about 5'10", who was playing the 6. That's Nick Mendoza. No.
I know. It wasn't him.
So it was one of the 10s probably?
Yes, it was one of the 10s, and I'd have to go back and watch.
So there was a 13 at right back. There was a 14 that started as one of the 10s next to Robert Screen.
Mm-hmm.
He was moved to striker around the 60th minute mark until about the 75th minute mark. And number 12 subbed in, he's probably like 5'7", 5'8".
Yeah, I have to go back and look. I have to make a look. There were a couple of trialists I thought in the midfield that I thought played pretty well in the second half.
Nice. I need to go watch. So I feel like in the second half
Might be number 12.
Maybe I'm just got a little dyslexia going on.
Yeah. I feel like when you watch in the second half for trialists, it's just like, do I see a good moment? Did they do a good individual thing? Because like you can't take anything away from the plan essentially in the second half, but you can take something away for the grit to make a moment happen.
This player put in like what they would say, put in a good shift.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he pressed. He popped off the stage. I mean.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. When I go back and watch, and finish watching the second half, I'm very excited to see some of the moments, but I'm not going to take any like team plan away from you. Oh, we're going to play like this.
I do think so. You talk about like individual players and how I'm basically saying like there's really nothing you can take away. I do think there's something you can take away from the first half with 10 signed players and 1 trialist in terms of like how I think we might be. And we'll find out at the next open game against Knoxville in a couple weeks.
I'm excited for that, especially now that we beat Atlanta. I'm going to be really let down when we lose to Knoxville.
I think we can start from a base idea. So like we lined up against Atlanta with a 4-1-4-1.
Yeah, that was interesting. Rewatching that first half, it is a 4-1 bank of 4-1, which is like defensively not. A 4-3 can line up like that, but you watch the bank of 4.
It's a
the
bank
of 4 moves altogether.
I don't like it.
And
it's weird.
You
know what I do like though? Winning.
Well, giving up no goals in the first half.
So and what I thought was interesting about it is that the pressing triggers came from central. Mm-hmm. So whether it was Marcus making the initial press and one of the 10s stepping out to take the other center back. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of like built it from there. Like 10 marks one of the 6s, your wingers over, your wingers inside. It leaves the big diagonal open because now that outside back has to handle.
They didn't hit a ton successfully. I would have imagined they would have hit them more often, but the trap.
I think that's one of the big reasons
reasonably
why.
Well. Like the first 5 minutes of that game, they can't get out of their own half, which was wild.
I think that's
and
one
then
of the
Click
reasons.
starts dropping all the way deep, and then they start because he's former DP, very good player. They start being able to move the ball, but like we spent 5 minutes with their like haven't even touched the ball in our half essentially, which is not. I don't care who you're like. If you're playing an MLS team, like playing an MLS Next Pro team, no matter who it is, you expect that they're going to be immediately in your half, like taking you on.
Yeah,
So,
I really think that Atlanta couldn't move the ball quickly and like kept going constantly back to reset. I think that's one of the reasons why like their coach was so pissed about the performance, not the result.
Yeah, he made a comment in the if you listen to the post in his post game about too many passes that went backwards.
did you?
He
did
called
you see what Chris
called
said?
that shit boring.
Yeah.
Did you hear what Chris said about it?
No.
So in Chris's post game, he said, essentially, I'll paraphrase, like, yeah, they had a lot of possession, but we don't mind them having possession if they're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
Which totally fair. But he had a little smile on his face.
I mean, I think a lot of coaches said that about us last year.
Yeah.
In many years. Yeah, like it's we had an old coach that's not Rod and it's not Chris who used to say possession without penetration is masturbation, which is a very crass way of who might that have been? Only one guy. Shout out Peter Fuller, we miss you. But there is some truth to that. Like you got to do something with the ball, and it was fun for once to be on the other. And like I loved Rod's coaching style. I liked playing with the ball. I do like Rod, and I believed in his like plan. So I'm not shitting on it, but it's nice. After several years of that, it's fun to be, and where we watched the wrong side of that, where we were on the Atlanta United side of that. It's fun to be on the other side of that, where you're like going, ha, like can't do anything with that ball, can you?
It is really interesting that they immediately, in order to like go through the rest of the paces to get something out of that first half besides fitness, like they just had to drop Mateus Klitsch between the center backs.
And
Which,
then they didn't
by
have
the
numbers
way,
in the midfield anymore.
Destroyed our
press was done.
our ability to like press trap. Like we didn't really high pressure, but like whatever pressing we were going to try to do to like force them to move the ball around, give up the ball, whatever it was, like that went out the window as soon as Klitsch picked up the ball. It was like, okay, this is his now. Like, oh, okay, you know what? You lost your numerical advantage in midfield. We're just going to drop in, be compact, like.
We still trapped. We still trapped here and there.
Give it to your outside backs, and then pass it around a little bit more. Go back to the goalkeeper. Bring it back. Just let us know when you want to cross, and we'll be ready for it. Like that's really all it was.
So is that enough of the game? Do you want to talk through the goals?
Atlanta's goal comes off of a corner kick. It's a nice header. It's poorly defended.
Yeah, who did he? I mean, 'cause that kid. He's an outside back. He's not incredibly tall. Who did he go? Who was defending on that?
A trialist.
Oh, okay.
They all were back at that point.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I mean, at that point, it's like, oops, like who cares? I mean, you don't want to score. You don't want to let them score, but like,
yeah,
I don't think it was the center back who was defending. I think
it wasn't.
Okay.
It was one of the small.
Yeah, one of the low. Yes,
Whatever. I can't be bothered.
And it's a good header. I saw the replay and I'm like, it's a solid. Like he got up there, he hit it.
Well, it's easy to do that when the person in front of you doesn't jump.
Yeah, and that person's already pretty short.
Yeah.
I just can't be bothered. They score, we respond.
And then Jesus' ball. We already talked about Jesus' goal.
Yeah,
Talk me about the other goal.
What happens next is really interesting because we earn consecutive fouls on the right hand side
And yellows.
I forgot about that.
Was there yellows?
Two yellows.
Consecutive fouls.
I think I missed
yellows.
that.
In the second half.
Right. I think I missed because I watched part of the second half on my phone, and then I watched.
They were both reaching out and grabbing somebody who's dribbled beyond.
Oh, I did see the one. The one was just like
so. I think the
smoked.
First one is the right back that is like breaking through and gets pulled down to prevent him going all the way through. And I feel like we take that short, and it sets up another sequence, and that sequence ends up with the ball at the feet of a kind of a bigger target man-ish trialist center back, or trialist striker.
Is that the last striker that came in?
Yeah, number 32, and
he's a big boy.
I think he spins his attacker a little bit, which he had tried to do to Stian Gregerson earlier in his cameo in the box, but he like kind of spins his attacker in space and then is able to poke the ball away down the line and just gets cleaned. And it's like an obvious yellow card. And they
didn't see that
They
play.
put the ball. They put the ball down, and that's when number 12 lines up for the free kick.
I bet it is dyslexia.
Which is the
I would have sworn
the
on
game
21,
winning
but
the game winning goal.
yeah, it is. I mean, listen. It's a decent. It's a good. I'll even say it's a good ball in. It is. It is in that little zone where the keeper's like
The corridor of uncertainty.
yeah, right. Yeah. But it bounces and it's not especially a hard cross. I mean, the ball's not hit hard. They should have had time to react and they just don't. I mean, none of them. There's 3, it bounces in front of 3 Atlanta United defenders.
You love to see it.
I mean, and none of them even stick a foot out. And, I don't know who.
It's 32 that
32.
The big
gets on it.
trialists.
Yeah.
Big-
So he
big
gets a
trialist
foot. I
center
don't know
back,
if he's
or
shooting
striker.
or if he's. I mean, he's probably shooting.
He's shooting.
He's probably
He's just
shooting.
shooting
See,
wide.
I think he's passing.
No.
No,
I don't think.
I think he's passing.
that is a striker.
Yeah.
That is a striker.
Yeah,
that striker is not shooting
think he-
inside
yeah,
the six
to
or
me it was-
passing inside the six.
To me, it was like, okay, that's a fluffed shot, and then. 30
Trialist center back.
Yeah, trialist center back.
in,
is
in
there to
fairness to
it is horrific defending. I would have thrown something if
we had been defending that bad.
It is. I mean, listen. It was great. I'm glad. We scored. But oh my gosh, none of those guys want to be in the film room.
Oh no, they're getting killed for that. Like
my
those are all
gosh.
first team contracted players
Yeah.
giving up what is going to go down. If you did not combine XG in terms of a chance, because a single chance can not have more than 1 XG per 0.99 or whatever it is. If you were able to like take both of those individually for a second, 3 trialists that are definitely not pros, like 3 trialists combining for what may be like a 1.75 XG chance against a bunch of MLS contracted players looks real bad.
Yeah, I mean it's great for us to score. I'm glad, but it's horrific defending. It's not. I mean, horrific doesn't even.
I love it.
The stink of the last few years of Atlanta United is still well and truly in that locker room.
Man,
like that's horrific.
yeah. I can't tell you how mad I'll be if or when if we give a goal like that. It was just. Again, the cross in is not especially. I mean, it's fine. It's in the right place. It's a
good ball.
It's a good ball, but it's not hit with. It's not hit very.
No
hard.
ball's good enough to beat that many players.
No. It's not. Oh, it's. I mean, I loved it when it happened. I've gone back and watched it a couple times, and every time I watch it, I shake my head more as someone who loves who played defense and then had 2 kids who played center back. I would have had a conversation with either of my kid in high school if a goal like that goes in, let alone MLS players.
Hey, buddy, what happened?
Yeah, what were you looking at? I'll tell you what you're looking at. The ball just. I mean, no, it was awful.
Yeah,
And I think it was amazing.
And then you've got the final, 3.5 minutes of a bit of a flurry.
Let's talk about that save.
Yeah, that's a hell of a save. I mean, it really is. He's volleying it from just outside
12?
the 6-yard. No, I think he's like just outside the 6-yard box.
Yeah, but it's at the corner, so
yes, but and he nails it. And I mean,
it's a great volley.
It's a hell of a reaction save.
Yeah, it's one of those so Michael says that I did a post game press interview as well, and he basically said it's the one you expect to make. Like it was hit pretty hard, but whatever. And I think he's selling himself a little short. I think he's just being
Yeah, it is. It is at him. It is. It is. It's not like he's got to go.
It's not like he has to go cross, but
right.
it's hit so hard.
yeah.
And like
And high.
and to tip it over your head like that, like it's one that he's like, look, he says something to the effect of like, you'd be upset at yourself if you didn't make that like save, like, but also like, man, dude, I don't know if I would like if that goes over his head and he can't get there in time. I'd be like, man, if he didn't hit it as hard, he would have had a chance at that. Like, it's such a good save.
Yeah, it's a good save. I mean.
And it was one of those also like the kids are all right moments for me because we saw John Burke take a big step between his first pro season and his second pro season. Last year, John Burke was a far different keeper and one of the by the numbers best keepers in MLS Next Pro last year. And I'm not saying Beretta is necessarily going to do what he's going to do whatever he does, but like he's had now 1 year as a pro, similar to John Burke, and he's now going into his second year, and it's 1 45-minute cameo, but I did see what I felt like was growth, especially confidence-wise.
He didn't have a lot to do. He didn't have a lot of cross. I mean, he had a couple of good punches too, kind of clearances. I thought Michael played really well.
I thought he looked like a real pro.
Yeah,
which is kind of like the best thing you could say about a really young player, I think, in a lot of ways. All right, anything left from that game, or should we move straight to the trial list that we just signed out of that game?
Well, let's move to the trial list.
So, Matthew, this man is a unit. As they say, he is gym size.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, no, he's not that big.
Well, I mean, he's about as tall as you are.
Yeah, but he uses his weight differently than I.
He's a bit more svelte.
Yeah, right.
What's he listed at?
Yeah,
so you told me 6'4"?
I think 6'4".
So he's like 4 inches shorter than you, but like he's pretty.
I'm 6'4". I'm not 6'8".
But he's pretty tall.
Yeah.
So this is 6'4", 24-year-old Ethan Dudley,
who played for
most recently with Atlanta United too.
How many matches?
13 with a goal and an assist. About 900 minutes. That part wasn't written down. I just knew that.
I like. Did he play 1,000 minutes or so?
He just said 900.
Oh, you said 900. Did you really say? Okay, I missed that part.
So yeah, it rounds up to 1,000.
I mean, if you include, the stoppage time,
Right.
the way ASA
Coming
does it,
on
it's
and
probably
off the
about 1,000.
Jeez, you're ridiculous. We don't call him Matt GPT for nothing. But I love the pedigree of this signing. I've said a million times, and I'll say it again. I wanted more guys out of MLS Next Pro, and this, just like Nick Mendoza, just like Steve. Like, these are guys that played significant minutes last year. You don't have to be like a nailed-on starter every single game, but like he joined them midway through the season, right, at Atlanta.
Yeah, in mid-May.
So he joined midway through the season, and then he played 13 times, most of which were starts. Like, that's
solid.
That's solid. Mm-hmm. And like, look, if he is a nailed-on starter for us all season, like, we'll see how that looks. But my expectation is, based on how late he has signed, and because he was in camp with us, like, I'm guessing he's one of the guys vying for a starting spot. But I don't know that we're signing this guy to be the starter. And so, like, if our guys that are like one of the rotational guys who may start a bit and may not are coming out of MLS Next Pro, it just makes me much happier about like the kind of ceiling for like real veteran like guys that know this league and that can play in this league.
He's welcome to start 28 times as far as I'm concerned. Like anyone is. Like, go out and earn your spot and don't give it away to anyone else. Like,
he's left-footed.
That's a great question,
because I said that as well.
That goal, the goal that the club put up, if he's not left-footed,
yeah,
to hit that shot left-footed, I'm definitely impressed.
Yeah, so let's go through his bio real quick.
Please.
He's from St. John's, Florida, which is the town or county or whatever it is, just below Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. He did 4 years at Florida Gulf Coast University, aka Dunk City, starting every match in his final 2 seasons there. You need to watch more sports, okay? Just get that.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what Dunk City is.
Just look up Florida Gulf Coast University in Georgetown. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
He did
definitely not going to.
He did his grad year at Northwestern Big Ten. Started all 17 matches there.
Got to be pretty smart too. It's a good program as well.
He signed with Crown Legacy for 2023. That was the year that was Crown Legacy's first year in MLS Next Pro. Where they won the Eastern Conference going away.
That's where they were really, really good, right? They're like a $3 million player.
He was not one of the the regular players in that group. They had a pretty settled team, and he was not really able to break in. Makes a late season loan. He also might have been injured, to be clear. I'm not 100% sure why, but he just didn't play very much there. Made a late season loan to Union Omaha. And
pretty good program there, yeah, as well. If you're going to be in D3, like,
well, it's a ladder up from us.
easy, Jim, easy.
We'll get there. And
Jeez, I had like a burned eyebrows button over here.
He was a regular player in his college days in the NPSL ranks with Jack's Armada U23, and went back there at the beginning of the 2024,
which is where the clip of that goal you were talking about comes
season, and then was signed by Atlanta too in May, and played there the rest of the year. So now on trial and now signed.
To me, that's a real vet out of the league that can play minutes for us. Starting, sub, whatever they are. And hopefully he is left-footed, because
if we have two better, then we'll be okay.
We're going to be okay no matter what, because we're CFC. Which player do you want to go to next, Matthew?
So I think let's do this. Let's talk about the news that was announced yesterday. That today we're recording on Wednesday. This will get released, I'm sure, hopefully Thursday morning.
Should be.
So let's talk about the news on Tuesday. Was that Tuesday?
I don't know. I don't even know what day it is.
I don't know what day it is either. The mutual contract termination with Jude Arthur.
Thank you for your time, Jude. I wasn't clapping for him leaving. Okay. I'm giving the positive. So on this podcast,
Jesus,
I was like, okay, is that what you
no. On this podcast, we go with like a few top moments from anybody's career, whether they are beloved or they're a part-time player. And so I was giving him some positive send-offs. Man, so I think of him as the first like big transfer we ever did.
Yeah, I mean, any transfer is a big transfer, to be clear.
Correct. That's what I mean.
He was our second, but he was announced as the club record signing.
Yep. And so, like, he had a couple games, including one against Atlanta, that I thought he was like really special in. What could have been, I guess, which is a shitty way to remember somebody, but like what could have been.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no other way to, and I'll do a thing. I'll do a moment here in a second. There's no other way to look at the Jude Arthur tenure at CFC and feel like there was just something didn't go right. And I don't know if that was because his signing happened in March. Like, I think possibly after the season started at all. He didn't arrive until he didn't arrive in country until mid-April, and he was thrown into a game pretty quickly where I thought he did pretty well at Huntsville in that 1-0 win, and but then I thought he didn't have a great game. I'm pretty sure he started against Atlanta, or maybe he came off the bench against Atlanta. There was the Carolina Core game where I thought he was pretty good. Like, it's a really tough start to come into a new country without a preseason and be the club record signing and be expected to go.
And to fill in for Richard Dixon. Those are big shoes to
Big
fill.
shoes. And for whatever reason, whether it was on our end, on his end, honestly, it's probably a little bit of both. They just didn't work out. And that happens, and it sucks. Like, you never want any player, to come in and it just not to work. And I think by the end of the year, I don't think he was getting off the bench, and I think it was kind of clear at that point in time, he was on a multi-year deal. Like, he was under contract for 2025 with an option for 2026. And I think by the end, you've got a guy on a multi-year deal who can't get off the bench. When midfield, his position, is also struggling, but he was also struggling at the same time. You know, like it's not surprising that the club with a new technical director and a different head coach, although that head coach being the assistant coach, you know, before, it's not that crazy to me that the parties would get together and decide, let's find a way to set you free and for us to move on, right? And that happened with Jesse Williams. And let me do my moment, because then we'll talk about the other one, which is much more interesting. Sorry,
and much more terrifying.
I think there was a game, and I'm pretty sure it's Carolina Core. Like his third game or something like that. Where I was like, oh my God, this, or maybe it's like Orlando. We ended up drawing, but like you ran that Orlando or Atlanta game, or they were like back to back or whatever it was. And he ran that game. Absolutely ran that game. And I really thought we had a hell of a player on our hands. Just like keeping the tempo, breaking stuff up, stepping when he needed to, you know, and maybe that was just the high water mark on the team, on the team's ceiling before, you know, some of the other teams around the league started leveling up. And when that happened, I think it might have really hurt our midfield couldn't level up at the same time, if that makes sense. And that caused kind of a cascading of our KPMs to start going negative. Or they were already on the line and then started going into the red. KPIs, sorry. Yeah.
We have metrics or indicators.
I will also add, Jude is going to go down with the assist on one of the best goals in CFC history.
The Duvan goal against Orlando?
No, that's not one of the best goals in CFC history.
Well,
although it is a great one in itself.
The vibes were amazing. That smash and grab 2 points in the end was maybe the biggest smash and grab we had all season.
It is the biggest smash and grab we had all season by far. No, the answer is Mehdi's goal, the bike against New England.
Oh,
that's a Jude Arthur assist.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll remember that because those are good moments.
Let's move on then to another one that is, I would argue, much more surprising. Mehdi Wamry.
Yeah.
Which I swear we had talked about on this podcast, but I guess we haven't.
We did not. That was, I think we released a podcast on a Friday morning after recording on a Thursday or something like that. And that dropped Friday afternoon.
What the hell?
Yeah. Well, let's just,
First of all, some applause for my guy with some great goals. He literally had the 2 goals of the season. He had an unbelievable bicycle kick and a phenomenal chip. I mean, the 2 goals of the season. He was a MLS Next Pro best 11 player.
12 goals, 3 assists. A hockey assist earned from an earned penalty.
15 goal contributions, 16 if you count the earned penalty. Man, he had an excellent season. And I was not expecting this one.
Yeah, so
I can tell by Jim's face he was also not expecting this one.
Yeah, so Mehdi, it's the same thing as the other 2, a mutual contact termination. Mehdi's contract when he was signed back in February 2024 or whatever it was that he was on a 1-year contract with a 1-year option. At the end of the season during roster decisions, Mehdi's contract was included as automatically, or he was under contract for 2025. I know that Mehdi's option was performance based, which he hit. during the regular season,
whatever that number was.
and it auto activated. What I think is going on here has a lot to do with a game model shift. I think Chris's CFC team is trying to go about things, whether it's in roster construction or in game model, that are very different from Rod's CFC team. And because of that, I'm gonna guess that like player, agent, staff like, got together and tried to figure out. I'll take that, buddy. Tried to figure out like what was the right move, and if you've got like a player like Mehdi, who you are worried does not necessarily, like, Mehdi's a good player. Like, no one's going to go out there and say that Mehdi's not a good player. But if you're worried he doesn't necessarily translate to your game model, now you've got a player who may not be very happy with a potential role that you give him. Because if you don't think he fits your game model, are you just going to play him, or are you going to adjust your game model for him? And it might make the player want to explore other options. And it could be that, and I'm guessing that it is, this is just what all parties thought was just best for everyone. And I think there's nothing wrong with, we want to buy player, or not, I guess we do want to buy players, but like we want to find players, we want to develop players, we want to sell players. But we also like want this to be a good situation for everybody. So like it's not insane to me that a player had something else come up. It's announced today. Today? It's announced today that he signed
today
with Union Omaha.
Union Omaha.
2-time back-to-back, maybe League One champions. Very good team. Like, that's a great program.
I'm really surprised not to see him go to the championship. So first of all, very clear that we had whatever happened, there was a plan here, because obviously he's on a new team now, but we announced that we were parting ways, and then we also announced a new striker, who we can talk about in a second, like in like a couple days period, right? So they had it done. He was under contract for this year, so if he doesn't want to leave, they can't just cut him, because he had his option automatically triggered, which means they had a mutual agreement for him to go. So like you have to think, and if you watched his Instagram, which Matthew and I started paying attention to, we didn't see him in camp. Like, he wasn't in camp. He was never in camp. So like it's not like he was here and then left. So like clearly they had some sort of plan going in that, like, it seems like, reading the tea leaves there, they were going to part ways as long as it was a win-win for everybody. And I guess it was a win-win for everybody. Now, I don't know if having to live in fucking Omaha is a win for anybody. But like,
Omaha's a good town. It's a really good team. It's a really good program.
If you're gonna be in League One, it's where you're gonna go.
If you're gonna be in League One, like, that's a great place to go. You know, I think they've had a stadium, a setback with finding a stadium location. Like, that's a team that's already like, that is USL Championship bound as soon as they move into a stadium, like to like a permanent soccer specific stadium. Like that's a there's no shame in playing for Omaha. Like that's a good place to be for a player.
Yeah,
and
I do think it's to be fair, a pretty lateral move from here at best. But that's because CFC is the best place to play if you're in D3.
Yeah, sure.
But also, like, I'll be honest, like, I'm really, really nervous about this.
It's a big. There is a large wager happening.
Because you're getting rid of what could be called by many people, and I think there's arguments on who was our best player last year, but Mehdi's in that conversation.
He's MLS next best 11.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not put him in that conversation?
So, like, you're getting rid of the one sure thing goal scorer we had. Take apart that Alex McGrath always scores, and like obviously other things happen, but like you're talking about the 9 that scored all the goals for us, 16 goal contributions if we count Matthew's way, and like, boy, it's you got to have some big old testicles to move on from that guy.
Big pools.
And I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not feeling great about it. Not because the guy coming in is not going to be good, but because like I like become accustomed to Mehdi being good.
Those are goals going out the window.
Yes, exactly. Out the door.
With. Yeah, I understand.
So Mehdi will miss you. Also, I will miss saying hi to Mehdi after the game. He was maybe one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. Like, big smile, shakes your hands, asks you how you're doing, looks you in the eye, and you believe that he wants to know how you're doing. You know, some people just, hey, what's up, man? Like, that's just a what's up. And like, he like be like, how are you? And he like look you directly in the eye, just like
incredibly nice. His fiance, now wife, also incredibly nice.
Yes.
They got married a few weeks after the season. In France, so they'll be in Omaha. I actually messaged him today to congratulate him.
Jim, how are you feeling? You've been quiet.
I just put it the way he did. We're betting on our Scandinavian duo to pick up to score.
Let's talk about the taller twin, the taller Scandinavian and younger Scandinavian twin.
Yeah. So as one international spot becomes available, it gets filled, and that fill comes from 25-year-old Danish striker Peter Plumling.
Do you think he's saying that right?
What?
Also, welcome to the team, Pete. You think he's saying that right?
Peter Plowman.
Plowman?
Plowman. Plowman. Or whatever.
There's no way that's right. There's no way that's right. Yeah, Gesundheit.
So here's so Peter's kind of
it doesn't even bat an eye.
No.
Peter's kind of a classic international player coming out of the college ranks, where he's coming out of from. Like, he's a little bit older than your standard 4-year player.
How old is he?
He's 25.
25.
He scored
Same age as Mehdi.
59 collegiate goals. He was the NCAA Division II Player of the Year this past season.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. He scored, what was it,
25
goals in the 2024 season.
How many assists did he have?
17 over the course of his 4 years.
Okay.
69 matches, 59 goals,
Nice.
17
Nice.
assists.
Those are pretty good numbers.
You don't see a lot. Like, I don't see like a full highlight package out there. But you can watch some of these like individual things if you try hard enough.
And I did.
He's got this like. This is a lazy comparison.
No, it's not. It's fun.
because it's Scandinavia, but he's got a little bit of that like Holland-esque, like put your head down, hard charging.
He runs funny, is what he's trying to say.
Okay.
He's got a particular gait, and it's an effective gait. So I'm not shitting on the guy, but he's got a particular like big guy run.
He runs with his shoulders.
Oh,
like
okay.
Holland does.
Yeah.
Not the same way, but in a similar way.
But like you watch his moments, and now we've got like 2 assistant coaches. Oh, I think we probably have to talk about that too. We've got a couple of assistant coaches with like North Carolina youth and college soccer like backgrounds, who will have undoubtedly seen this guy play a bunch.
As he played 4 years in North Carolina.
Yeah, Marcel's in near.
Do you know where Marcel is? Did you know it before this?
A little bit outside of Asheville.
I mean, I've heard of Marcel, but I couldn't tell.
I had never heard of it before.
Oh, yeah.
It's north of Asheville, I believe. I think.
Well,
Anyway.
actually.
But like the way he scores some of these goals reminds me, if you think back to the Atlanta game on Saturday, there's Atlanta plays out of the back. This is the first half into the striker, or they're trying to play into the striker who's crossed now the halfway line back into his own half. And Fareed's like stuck on him. And the first touch by the striker is not very great. Fareed is able to just slip in and poke it away to Callum. Callum settles with his first touch, plays in behind into the right channel for Marcus with the second touch. And Atlanta defender and former CFC Academy player Noah Cobb is like reads it really, really well, is over to cover, so Marcus really can't do anything with it.
Block.
But like that kind of...
Is that the sliding block?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that the one where Marcus stopped to read a book before he...
Jesus. Calm
That
down.
is- that
Calm
is-
down.
Very rude. I don't think so. I don't think it's the same chance. But like that kind
I
of
love you, Marcus. I do.
that kind of in behind play to like one of the it's not like fully a channel ball, but like it's kind of like in that like just outside like 6 yard width or whatever. A lot of Plowman's goals, I feel like in watching some of Plowman's goals, in watching only some of his highlights, seem to be like balls that are ending up in that channel that he's running on to and finishing
And
from.
smashing home.
And that feels like, and this is why I say about Mehdi that I think there's a bit of game model, like finding a striker that fits the game model a little bit better. It seems like this player is tailor-made for this particular thing. And we won't know until we get him in.
And we won't know until we watch him do it against real pros.
Right.
Because like we watched Mehdi do it against real pros. He did different things, but like scored against real pros. This guy scored a lot in college. This guy also, there are guys that score a lot in college like this guy who come out and do nothing. And there are guys who score a lot in college who just continue to score. Right. And so like, I am happy that the guy we replaced Mehdi with is this pedigree of guy that went like National Player of the Year in D2.
Yeah, and like
Like,
before
that's a
anyone says
good
anything,
thing.
like D2 is still good ball.
Yeah, no, it's
Like,
Absolutely.
If you're one of the better players in D2, like you're a good player.
And you're probably going pro. And so like I'm not worried about the pedigree of this guy. I'm just worried because I watched Mehdi do it in the league last year and like
Yep.
you know those goals out the door. Like if this guy might come in and score 15 or 17, like, and we'll be like cool.
Yeah,
but
something
it's just scary.
Someone once said that one of the things they look for, because college soccer translating to pro soccer is such a crapshoot at times, said one of the things they look for is, does a player that gets older, freshman through senior year, whatever it is, can they figure out a way to can they score more goals? Do their goals and assists increase? Because as your notoriety increases, the attention defensively on you increases. So in order to be scoring more goals later in your career, when you're a goal scoring player, you are having to make smarter runs. You are having to really like add different skills in order to get open. And for a guy, I think what's 59 minus 25, is that 34? For a guy to score 34 goals in his first 3 years of college ball, which is an average of 11.3,
3. Repeating.
to then score 25 in your senior year. And look, I think they had a couple extra games because they made a tourney run for the first time, I think, in school history, but like a couple more games. In order to do that, I think speaks to the kind of player that he probably is, and that he's not just like a one trick, college pony or anything like that.
So here's the thing I am excited about. We've got Marcus from the beginning of the year. One thing we lacked last year desperately was a backup striker. Carlos Rivas was absolutely terrible for large portions of the year, and didn't do this. It certainly wasn't the same type of player and
I would not have bet on that going in.
No, I would have bet on him being better. So Marcus from the beginning of the year, he should be like sharper and fitter. He came in the middle of the year last year, and like he only had like 7 games to like start making an impact. We get Marcus from the beginning of the year, which I feel better about. We get this kid from the beginning, or he should be in earlier than Mehdi was in, because remember, Mehdi got in a little bit late because of getting signed and having visa waiting and all that stuff.
Mehdi's first training session was the Thursday before the season opener.
So like those are like the positive things, and we get a guy who has scored a ton of goals, who our coaching staff should have, as you pointed out, seen him, at least the assistant coaches, quite a bit in North Carolina. At least that's my assumption. Otherwise, why do you sign a guy straight out of North Carolina if you haven't seen him? So, knock on wood, cross our fingers, like that this bet is one that pays off.
But I what I hear you saying is from what you've seen though, he's not a striker that creates his own. He's somebody who makes the good run but somebody's got to deliver.
So
him the ball.
I watched essentially all the highlights I could find of him. And his first few years when he's younger, he does a lot of like dribbling and creating on his own and like creating his own shot. And like that's hard on one hand because like sometimes you're playing against road cones in college. Sometimes you're not, but sometimes you are. But then the ones from his senior year, it is a lot of him getting on the end of stuff. Right. It's not exclusively, but it's a lot of I would call him a marauding, like through, and it's headers and it's slam homes and it's like, it's first time finishes,
I care
second
way
touch.
more.
So I would say it's a combination of the things. I just don't know how that translates to the pro game. He's definitely not a one trick pony. Yeah. From what I saw, what he does do is score in many different ways. Like,
well, I guess my only point was we're going to need
service.
Yeah, we're in the wingers. Well, it depends on how we play, whether the service is going to be coming from centrally or from out wide. But
I think we saw like a little bit, and it's 45 minutes, but a little bit of the trapping thing. There was the like. It looked to me like as we trapped, instead of like pressing on the first guy, we'd like wait for the second ball and then try to trap really hard. If we're trapping and turning over and we've got somebody who's then breaking for goal hard and that has like a marauding running style of like getting forward, I mean, I don't know if that's what we're going to do, but if that is, and this is the type of guy, like he in his highlights seems to excel in those type of like situations. It's also like, if you remember the Philly game where Callum played those two balls, like splitting the whole team through to Mehdi, where Mehdi was essentially one-on-one with the keeper, and the dude makes an unbelievable sliding tackle, and the other one Mehdi misses. Like, if that's going to be, and I don't know if it's going to be, but a feature of this game where like Callum's going to pull the strings. We saw against Atlanta United, no Alex, out with an injury. We saw the strings pulled there. Like if Callum's going to play like that, where he's pulling a lot of the strings, like are we just leaning into not always getting vertical, but like getting vertical more? I don't know, but I'm just like extrapolating out of that.
And there was verticality trying to be created from the different, like, you know, the right-sided team, Tate, Callum, Jalen James, was trying to like create kind of triangles, and then one breaks off. Whoever it is.
Speaking of someone who should have got a shout out, Jalen James was awesome in that first half.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah, I thought he played well.
And I think that's going to be also something that you saw a little bit of like Milo and Minjay, and sometimes it was Callum ball side over there as well. And you know, those guys trying to do that same sort of thing. I thought they had a little bit less success than the right hand side group did. But yeah, that's Peter.
So we got a new striker. We got a new center back. We lost a DM and a striker.
Yeah,
does that catch us up on the?
That catches us up now. We have one international spot open.
This is going to be such an. We talked about season of change. Like we have now, changed all the things. What, Matthew, would you like to go to next? Mailbag?
Great question.
Because I know we have some mailbag comments and questions to catch up on here.
I think we are at the mailbag.
Let's do it.
So Rick on YouTube, a dozen departures with 500 games played. Is that worrying, or do the incoming players somewhat offset that?
Jim, tell us how you're feeling.
Is it worrying or yes?
Now,
short answer, yes.
You do get 62 games or 63 games, whatever it is, back in Tate Robertson.
Yeah.
NISA games.
Sure. Here's the thing. Players are going to figure out what it means to play for CFC. And there's going to be evolution in teams. And it's just going to be on. I'll put it this way. Between Marcus, Alex McGrath, Tate, Jesus. Yeah, those four players, we probably have, without looking it up, we probably have 300 of those games back right there. Those four players will combine for, I'm confident, right around 300 games played for CFC. So yes, that's a lot of experience playing for the club out the door, but there's also a lot of experience still here. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be on those guys. It's going to be on Fareed, who may have only played 1 year.
But yeah, that captain's armband on
But
Saturday.
without Alex on the field, he was the
I
captain.
noticed that.
It's going to be on those guys to help the new players who may have an idea of signing for this club and what it means, but to really help them along with how a CFC player conducts themselves, how you play for the shirt, how you play for the city, how you play for the community, and you let all the personal stuff go to play for this club. And individual success is rewarded by team success. So, I think changes is just part of it, and I think players will.
Yeah, I'm just nervous. It's the entire spine of the team has changed. Mm-hmm. I guess Zarzar was here, but he wasn't really a starter. So if he's starting,
he started more games than you think he started.
Maybe
I went through the same thing.
Maybe maybe he did.
We're in some weird places of grieving here.
But the center back pairing is certainly new, or will be new, and the 6 is new. You've got at least some central midfielders who are new, and the striker who we have a new, of course, with Marcus coming back. So I that's it's worrying, but there's also an opportunity to see how these guys play. So, and I'm going to be a broken record as many times. Whenever you have me on here, I'm going to mention I am concerned about our wingers or our out one, the people who are out wide.
I thought you were going to say lack of mangonadas.
Yeah, there's no mangonadas. There were no mangonadas to be seen on Saturday, but.
I share your same concerns.
And
about
I don't know if I'm hyper fixating because I am hyper fixating on this.
We are. You and I are. He's not worried, but
I just saw, especially in the second half, where we want to see wingers be able to take the ball and beat someone, and we just
Jesus was the only guy who did it.
Yeah,
that's not true at all.
He's the only guy who did it for a goal.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what comes of it. But I am also hyper fixated on like the winger position. But also, as Matthew has pointed out to me, if the game model is different, then it is unfair to expect that the players are going to have the same outcomes, which is what he keeps beating into my head.
And the 4-1-4-1 is just strange.
I also think we might see a 4-3-3 against teams that we can attack better, and a 4-1-4-1 against teams where we need to be more defensive. I am totally guessing there, but I could see that being the case too.
Well, in some ways, yes, it is. And that's why the winger play. Again, in my mind, I'm thinking about a 4-3-3, last year's formation wingers, and this will be a little bit different.
I would argue this team defended in that game out of a 4-1-4-1 and attacked out of a 4-3-3, and they're functionally the same.
Yeah.
Matthew getting all pedantic here.
Well, again, formation is just a starting point, but. Yeah, as many times as I'm going to be here until we have the best wingers in the league, I'm going to be concerned about it.
Yeah, I think winger is such a key position, and it was in particular a key position for Rod's teams. I don't know if it's going to be as key for Chris's.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
And that's what I'm trying to tell myself, because it's the same wingers from last year, essentially, plus Amzian. And it's like, boy, personnel hasn't changed. Is performance going to change? But it also might. And also, it's a new game model, and also it's a new year. Guys have a chance to grow. If that's the Jalen James we get, as an example, that's already like a much better player than last year. I think that's the best game he's had in a CFC shirt. It's 45 minutes in the preseason, I realize, but
he's scored 3 goals and had an assist in one half.
I was going to say,
which probably remains the best game.
Was that his first? That was his first game, right? Was that his first game that he scored?
Miami.
It was his first
start.
Yeah.
So that was what I was going to say. Is since Miami, I didn't quite get there yet. Okay. But I thought he was really good, and so I'm with you. Our winger play, no matter what happens, no matter who it is, has to improve from last year, or we're potentially going to be tough. We're going to have a tough time scoring, but also it's just the first game of the preseason, so there's plenty of time for us to improve. Those are the things I'm telling myself.
Albert on YouTube says, "Thank you guys for a good podcast. I do hope that eventually you will be a place for supporters to share a frustration and be a lot less politically correct. You guys are way too nice. The club is growing and the fans need that voice." No.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Look at me. I don't look at the camera for any reason on this podcast. Look at my eyes.
That's what I'm here
for.
That's what
Thank you for the kind words. This is why we bring Jim. No, so basically, we're still going to criticize certain things. We're just, not going to be overly negative towards specific players. That's the only thing we said on that podcast. I think that's the thing that bothered him, where we said we try to be positive generally and towards. If we're going to be negative, it's team wise, not picking out one.
I don't like calling on it. I mean, I may say something about the defense. I may say something about we need more going forward, or the right side or left, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's not nice to be like, "Hey, Zeus sucks," because number one, it's not true, and number two, it's not cool. We're too close of a community for that. I understand if people want to feel that way and say that, that's cool. I'm not sure that's what he's saying we need to say, but that is just not our brand. But I do think we have called the team out for playing poorly in the past. We're really disappointed with performances. And I've cursed a lot on this podcast in a way that I'm sure my mother's not proud of. So yeah,
your mother doesn't listen to this podcast.
God, I hope not.
Your dad probably does.
He does. Which I should think about more often.
Let's see. Yeah, there's another comment in here from Albert about wanting to watch other games, but there's no recording.
Yeah, that was a complaint that you had about, and you both shared.
God.
Let's see.
Do we know? I'm assuming it's going to be the same.
I don't know. I can't. I'm guessing it never changes, but I hope I'm wrong.
Tim on YouTube says, "My work and CFC goals have now somewhat aligned in that traffic easing on Main Street is one of my 2 work resolutions."
Hell yeah. We were talking about, that was from the New Year's resolution pod.
Rick on YouTube, maybe rules have changed since the 2022 season, but
I thought we should talk about this. I thought it was an interesting point he brought up.
Rochester, New York FC played on a field every home match that was covered in lacrosse lines. So I can't imagine we were fined every game. Don't limit yourself, Rick. That team went out of business in 1 year.
Oh my God, Matthew. You are not a nice guy.
Poor Jamie Vardy. Poor Jamie Vardy.
Listen.
Apparently he's very poor. He was too poor to pay for
we won't talk about. I'm sorry. We won't bring up Jamie Vardy.
Scoring against guys twice his age. Or I'm sorry, half his age.
Don't ever forget pointing. Did you see him point to the?
I didn't watch the game, but I did hear about this.
He pointed to the Premier League patch and to the crowd and put up a 1. And then he did this to everybody.
It's a 0.
But it was 0.
That is funny.
Oh, he's such a douche. It's so good.
God.
It's so good.
He's such a shithouser.
Now we also should remember, and that this is partly a product of how COVID somewhere in the middle messes up your sense of time. That was 10 years ago.
2015.
Yeah. 2016, was it? 16?
Whatever.
Maybe. I thought it was 15, but 16, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
So what I will say to Rick about the lines thing, and I said this in a comment on YouTube, I think from the pod account, but I wanted, I think this is an interesting inside baseball type of thing. The way leagues enforce their rules, generally speaking, is fines. Obviously, they can have some forfeits, but they're not going to make you forfeit if you have lines on the field. That's a ridiculous thing to do. But they will fine you. So if MLS Next Pro did not have fines at the time, I'm sure they do now. But all leagues, USL, NISA had them in theory, though I don't think anybody paid them.
Why would you pay out one pocket and in the other pocket of the same person?
Shout out Bob Freeland. But I do know that leagues have fines. It is most likely that the fines were not high enough to cover the cost of painting those lines, most likely, in which case Rochester, New York probably just didn't want to spend, I don't know, $200,000 or whatever ridiculous amount of money one of those machines costs to paint the lines and unpaint the lines. And so whatever happened, they probably just was worth it to them to just take the fine every game. But I would be willing to bet you, a $20 or whatever, that they paid a fine all league. Or if they didn't, that because of that, you now pay a fine every single game if you don't paint your lines. And there's a reason we paint our lines, because why? I mean, granted, we want it to look professional, right? But sometimes there is a quick turnaround with the UTC game or a high school football game, and they have painted the lines every single time last year. And part of it is financial. It can't be only pride. And I wish I could believe that it was only pride, but we have in the past not done that.
Mm-hmm.
when we were in Nisa. So
Right. And get over lines.
I finally got over it after like 10 years.
Okay, we got another one from Albert. Even though I am in my late 20s, I am not your typical audience in the area since being from Europe is football is a way of life. But when I talk to my friends and invite them to games, there is interest, but unless I invite them, they do not really hear about CFC. So how to fix it? I think World Cup is good, but US is also hosting the Club World Cup this year. This is where CFC needs to figure out how to use this summer for promotion, especially among Hispanic population. Hopefully the CEO position will be taken care of and we can get things done. I'm going to kind of go on the last little bit of that in terms of the CEO position. And I'm reading those like as they're kind of connected because they were in the same sentence. I think things are going to happen throughout this club without a CEO being in the chair. This club has gotten very, very big in the span of the last 2 years. And things are just going to happen without someone in the chair. And there's an obvious need to increase the awareness and permanence in people's minds about the club. That was true in 2016. That was true in 2020. That's true in 2025.
Holy shit, it's 2025.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whether and like let's be honest, like whether you're white suburban or Hispanic or black, like or whatever, like we have obviously a ways to go on those fronts. For so long, CFC was, for a lot of people, not necessarily the diehards, CFC was just a fun thing to do in the summer. Mm-hmm. And the transition from just a fun thing to do in the summer to your football club is really the transition of 2018 to today. And that's not a thing that happens easily. That's not a thing like you can say like, yeah, it's great. We want the Hispanic population, people who love soccer or whatever. Like we want them to come to more games. Yes, we do. That's great. But we have to give them a reason. Yeah. Like it's not like here's the soccer thing. You like that. Like that's not what we're doing. Like you have to give people a reason to care. You have to give people a reason to do the romantic way, like to fall in love with the team.
You know where that starts? Winning.
Winning helps.
And it certainly doesn't hurt.
Winning helps, but you need a deeper connection beyond had a fun time and we won.
Totally.
That takes time.
When was our last deep playoff run? We talked about this a few podcasts ago.
Well, I don't know how you
2016. Deep playoff run, meaning like more than one game in the playoffs. It's like essentially 2016. And so
the answer was actually 2019.
You're right. 2019 was the last time.
But like
that's true. But like 2016, 2019 with the big deep summer run, if we could get a game or two at home this year, I think it would make a big difference for maybe, I'm not saying it sparks like the team of your heart or whatever for like a lot of people, but I do think it would introduce a lot of people because it would go back to being a really, really big event. We haven't had a bunch of really, really big events.
By the way, that's not even what I'm thinking about. Like that's great and that's awesome and we should win a lot of games and make the playoffs and like have home games in the playoffs and do all kinds of things like that. But like this goes way beyond. Like this is about like investing in the community and about investing in fields, about investing in young people and young players.
And academy kids watching the heroes grow up.
Investing in the foundation, which benefits all kinds of people across the area. Like this is so much deeper. Like I'm not thinking about like how can we attract fans, later this year. Like let's take advantage of opportunities. I want to attract fans 30 years from now. I want people to grow up with like CFC in their blood. And like I think we have to like reframe this thing. I want slow growth. Like let's win, let's attract people, but let's really build this club's permanence. I've used that word a lot. recently. Like, let's build permanence in what we do, like something that's lasting, something that we can pass on to new generations.
I saw a skeet of yours today.
Oh no!
And it was I think it was like a, dear Jesus, I see what you've done for others, and I want that for myself. And it was the Jacksonville Stadium.
Yes.
Speaking of permanence, it made me
I
think
mean,
of.
no, I mean, I think that's, that has to be, that would be a big part of it. A home that is your own. And that, I mean, Finley has been great to us, and I think we have been great for Finley. But for a number of reasons, a stadium of our own would go a little bit of ways of building that, making that permanent.
We have 2 to go here. Justin, true or false? In this league, the middle third is the most important, and we can reliably predict the winner of any match by whose is better.
Meaning the midfield is the key.
I figured.
Because I was thinking the middle third of the table when I first read that.
I think-
and I was like, first of all, you cannot predict who's going to win in this league in any game.
No.
Yeah.
Because this league is batshit crazy.
I am breaking my answer into 2 different pieces, which is that true, the middle third of the field is the most important in this league. And false. You cannot tell a damn thing what's going to happen in this league at any given match day.
Unless Noble Okello is playing.
And then you know that he's going to have a great game and Atlanta United 2 is still going to lose unless they're playing CFC.
Oh. Matthew.
He's a really good player. I can't wait to watch him at Phoenix.
But I mean, I think the first part of that statement is probably true for
Soccer in general.
soccer.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, the midfield is where it all happens.
It's where the bread's buttered.
Yeah.
All right, last one here. And this actually gives us a really nice final thing to talk about and ending. Sorry, buddy. I don't know if you guys have already recorded. We hadn't. But since we now know the date when the U.S. Open Cup game will happen, or dates.
What's the date?
Do we have the date of the first?
What's the date?
Yeah, it's the first round. We're in the first round. The first round is published.
I saw that we were going to...
It's amateur versus pro.
It is March 18 or 19.
Oh, okay.
So we will play. We got a schedule, by the way. We didn't talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
We have a schedule.
Do a schedule.
Yeah.
We open at Miami on the weekend of March 8. Our first home game is the weekend of March 15. We'll be playing Huntsville. I think it's on the 15th. The
Derby.
The Open Cup game will be, we don't know home or away. We know it'll be an amateur team.
This will be our 4th game of the season. 4th game, like competitive game.
Third game.
Oh, boy.
Either the 18th or the 19th.
I can't lose again to fucking Miami United or some shit.
The end
And
of
if
that,
Apotheos comes here and ends our season by murdering 4 of our players.
the end of that question was, based on the roster that we have right now, do you guys think that we have a chance to win our first game in the Open Cup? Or is it going to be a challenge like last year?
Okay, time. Who was that from Ross?
Albert.
Okay, Albert, that's a fucking very good question, buddy. Very good question. Yes, I feel much better about this year's team than I do about last year's team and winning that first game. And here's why. We didn't get, as you mentioned, Jude until like March, whatever, or April, or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
Mehdi had just arrived when we started the season, and we played very quickly thereafter. We didn't have all of our we just didn't. Duvan, I think, hadn't been here super long. We did not have our team. It feels to me like we have much more of our starting lineup done already. That starting lineup for Atlanta was probably 3 players short. Ish. I don't know for sure, but ish. I mean, we're missing Alex. We're missing a center back, although Maddie just signed him, so it might be done. But we're missing Alex in the midfield, who I think will be a starter. I don't know if it'll be Marcus or the new guy, but I'm guessing it's going to be the new guy, but it could be Marcus up top. And then, I don't know which one of the wingers is going to start, but we had 2 of our wingers. So, we're 3-ish players away, probably, roughly, from our starting lineup. And we haven't started our main preseason schedule yet. That makes me feel much better about being a better, more cohesive team running into that 3rd game of the season. So, do I think we're going to win? I don't fucking know. We lost last year and played an absolute goose egg. But, I think we should be less likely to do that because I think part of the reason we did that last year, not only did we like play down to the opponent, but I think we were not a cohesive unit yet because we had so many players missing in preseason.
Yeah, no notes.
We will be the professional team.
Yeah, that's always.
Our opponent will be an amateur team.
Yeah.
And we've been that amateur team a bunch of times.
We should win that game. But we might not because soccer is weird and weird shit happens. But like we'll be favored in that game whether we're home or away.
And I will be apoplectic if we lose.
We will
I will not deal with it well, I can just tell you.
So we'll see.
We're going to win. We're going to win.
Yeah.
Good vibes only.
You never know. It gets.
But we're not done with new players, I don't think. You said we've got one. We have 19 players.
No, I mean starters wise. I'm guessing starting position. Now we could definitely sign guys who push guys out of the starting lineup, but
Do you
like
think we've signed the start? Do you think the starters are in the 19?
I think
Some of them.
Well, yeah. Numerically, it has to be.
I think
some of them.
if I had to guess, we are waiting on a center back position, and I think we're done.
so.
I think in that 19 we have our starters outside the center back position. I wouldn't be shocked if we signed somebody that then pushed somebody out, but like my calculus, my math for now says that like that's our at least for game one we've got the guys we intend to start.
So players coming in later on, most likely depth.
I think so. I'm not sure on that, but I think so.
Yeah.
So we've got with the Ethan Dudley signing, we've got
And that might be the starter, by the way. That might be the guy.
we've got a center back that would get us to 4. We have a left back that would get us to 2 left backs. There's a central midfielder that would bring us to 6 central midfielders, split attacking and defensive. There's a striker
Yeah, good.
that would give us 3 strikers.
It could be a combo guy. It could be a big ass target man. It could be whatever.
Big ass target man.
Matt's
And
been
there's a
pining for a big
goalkeeper.
ass target man.
To get us to
3 goalkeepers.
3 goalkeepers. So
We
that's
have 3.
5.
Who's the third?
No, we only have 2. He's saying
Oh.
they're left to
I
sign.
got you.
So
I
like
got you.
you've got essentially what 5 spots, give or take,
Yeah.
however many roster spots we actually have. So we've definitely got like most. I would say we have most of our starters.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like you can sign a guy like this. That's what's fun about this. Like you can sign a guy that you're projecting is going to be just a backup, for depth or whatever, and then like they just adjust to the team and the game model and start killing it, and like you can't keep him out. Like that would be awesome.
But as Breezy said, that's one reason to be optimistic. They're already here, and
Yeah, this team is much more settled, especially in terms of your international guys.
Yeah.
Than
Because we had to sign essentially
than it
like
was.
5 international guys last year, and 3 of them got in either a week from
one international player last year was ready to go day one.
So like this, it should be a different season from that point of view.
Actually, that's not true too. I'm sorry.
What is your top projected? Like, what's the away game you're most excited to go to, or you're most looking forward to? Do you have one circled? Maybe not on the calendar, but in like a destination. So mine is Carolina Core. I want to go to Carolina Core. I haven't figured out if I can. I haven't looked enough at the schedule to know if I can swing Carolina Core away. But that's the one I want to go to. I'm going to go to more than that, but that's the one that I'm excited about.
I'd like to do Carolina Core without knowing when our 2 trips are. I'd like to do a New York one because I haven't done a New York CFC trip before.
Cosmos away was fun. R.I.P.
Toronto's on the schedule again. I'd love to do that, but I don't think I can because it just falls in the wrong time of year for me. I think the schedule ended up being like pretty good. Like we've got 5 Saturday away games, which is up from last year, especially in a league that plays a lot on like Fridays and Sundays. There's some pretty fun away games during like Columbus is on the schedule this year.
Ooh, Columbus! I didn't think about that.
That's in Historic Crew Stadium.
Columbus would be a top couple game for
We
me.
we go to Miami like super early on, like that first game of the season or whatever. Like that's our Miami trip. We're done. Fort Lauderdale. You've got 2 trips to Orlando this time around, and like Orlando is pretty meh, unless we do Epcot.
We could drink around the world at Epcot.
Cincinnati's not on the calendar. That's a huge bummer. We got 2 trips to New York though, so I feel like I gotta do one of those.
We got one to New York and one to New Jersey.
And that's our show for tonight. Yeah, fair enough. So
Yeah.
Any of those stick out to you, Jim? You did.
I mean, I don't. Yeah.
You did Huntsville away both times last year, right?
Yes, I did Hunts. Yeah. I think Carolina is probably the one that I wanted to go last year and can't remember why I couldn't go that. So yeah, Carolina would probably be, would be the one that I want to go to. Although, they're back to Toronto. We have Toronto again. So
Toronto would be fun.
taking a tip to Toronto.
If you're watching or listening to this, tell us what your top away game is for the season. And boys, do we have anything left? This has been a good one. It's been a long one. Another nice long rambling news episode
it
for us.
really was. I think I'm plumb out. I would expect if you're listening to this on, let's see, today's Wednesday. Hopefully it's out on Thursday.
He keeps saying that like I'm not going to release it tomorrow.
If you better, if
you don't have to do anything at that fancy machine. You don't have to do any auto editing or anything.
Well,
this starts next week. Starts my crazy. Officially starts like my every week travel. So we might be a little
for us,
all over the place podcasting. But I hope.
Well, if you don't want him here, right now I'm like, semi-retired, so I've got.
But we also have players in, so hopefully we can start doing some player interviews and restart that thing, and that should happen without me anyway.
And hopefully the three of us can, assuming you're back, or just me and Jim can review whatever the next preseason game is.
Yeah, we'll get around
because
to
it's like 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
So
That's the Knoxville, right?
Yeah.
One Knox followed by North Carolina, which we better beat North Carolina. Can't wait to lose another college team. Anyway, listeners, viewers, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We love you, and we will catch up with you soon. Peace.